A couple of weeks ago, I did a technique for using soft pastels on the gel plate that was really well received. So this week, I thought we could explore it a little bit further. So there's nothing more fun than using new media in your mixed media, right? I mean, that's the best thing about mixed media is that we get to pull things from every drawer and at the back of every closet in our studio and say, hey, what will it look like if I incorporate this? So I love overlays with wet strength tissue paper into my mixed media backgrounds. I love being able to put something on the tissue and slide it around and move it and decide where I want it, reposition it if I don't like it, make it smaller, make it whatever. I love that. So I am creating an overlay with soft pastel this week, and I'm just doing one for the demonstration, but here's what I suggest. Make a bunch of them, create a stash, and then you can use them to layer in your mixed media projects, whether it's in the background or even on top of the subject. But to have a stash of these overlays in different colors and different marks is a great addition to your collage paper stash. So if you've got a few minutes, let's go check it out.
So today I'm sharing this interesting technique for using soft pastels in mixed media. I love soft pastels, and many moons ago I used to work a lot in them, and I created a lot of beautiful still lifes. So I have a huge collection of very nice pastels. This was always my favorite brand, and that's Unison, because they are very buttery, buttery soft. Now, you can probably use any soft pastels you have on hand, but mine are going to be really soft because they are that beautiful Unison brand. But please experiment with what you have. So what I have here is a sheet of 9 by 12 rice paper, and I have my 9 by 12 gel plate. I've also got a Princeton, a Catalyst mini blade. I think this is what they're called, an '01 mini blade by Catalyst. These are great. They're silicone flexible, and I'm going to use this to make sure I can get a large piece of paper glued down flat on my mixed media background. So, and speaking of the mixed media background, this is created on a 1-inch deep cradled wood panel. And basically I have glued together a bunch of ephemera onto this board. So I've got a postcard, a small playing card, postage stamps, addressed envelopes, text from books, a checkout card from the old library system, etc. And I've glued it all down onto this wood panel, and this will be the base for a mixed media piece of work. And this is how I start. I set out the background, and then I decide what I want to put on here. A bird or a flower or any number of different subjects on this nice kind of neutral background. So I thought I would show you how I could add some soft pastel marks to this, because if I were to mark directly on this, then I have to spray it to seal it because it's smudgy. And the challenges with spraying soft pastel to seal it are that it often mutes the color or takes the color away, or requires multiple coats before it stops smudging. And it affects the color and it affects the vibrancy. So this technique is one in which we're going to put the soft pastel transferred from the gel plate onto wet strength tissue paper, where it will be embedded into the tissue paper and the layer of gel medium that we use to pull it. And so there will be no issue with smudging or sealing, and we are going to keep the vibrancy of the color. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go the full length of this 12-inch paper. My board here is 10 inches, but that gives me the opportunity to run it right off the edges, and that's what I want. So I want a long stretch of wet strength tissue that I could break it up into smaller pieces and add it here, but my thought was that I would like to run a stripe of pastel down this side, and I'm picking up colors from the postage stamps. They're kind of pinkish, red, rose. So those are the colors of pastel that I am going to use. And to show you, I store my soft pastels in a plastic lidded container that I fill with rice. The rice protects the pastels from banging and breaking, and it also keeps the surface clean. So as you toss the pastels around in the rice rubs the surface and will keep your fingerprints and smudgy other colors clean from the stick. So if you have soft pastels, this is a great way to store them and keep them clean and keep them protected. So I've pulled out these colors that I thought would kind of pick up the postage stamp colors from the front. And I'm just going to do some mark making down the full length of the 9x12 rice paper. So whether you want to do squiggles or straight lines or thin lines or thick lines or cross hatches, you know, you get to make some interesting patterns here. I don't want to get too busy because I'm already pretty busy on my background, but I'm going to have this off to the side. So the first thing I'm going to do now that I've got that on there is I'm going to transfer it to the gel plate. So I'm going to put the pastel side down onto my 9x12 gel plate, and I'm going to grab my Baron. I'm going to be using my Speedball Baron to really make sure I get good pressure to get the pastel to transfer. So now when I lift it up, you see that the pastel is transferred to the surface of the gel plate, and I'm going to use wet strength tissue paper to pull that with some gel medium. So I'm going to use my gloss gel medium because I use gloss in my work all the time. So when I ultimately collage it, and the base layer is adhered with gloss medium to keep my colors vibrant. If you prefer matte medium, that works just fine. So I'm going to roll the gel medium out over the soft pastel, and you can see that it is embedded in the surface of the plate because it's not even moving with the brayer. So then we're going to put the wet strength tissue and try to get it out smooth, which I did not do a good job of. And then we're going to add pressure with the Baron to that. And then we're going to pull, and you can see not only have we transferred the pastel, but there is no smudging because it is now embedded in the gel medium. So we can add another section of color to that. So we can come back in with a smudgier line, and this is what's lovely about these soft unison pastels. And we can add that. Now I don't want to put that over this, but I'll put it next to it, or kind of right like that. So what you can do is layers of effects onto the tissue. So layers of different colors and different marks. So this is a nice soft smudgy line, something that would, and let's make it a little heavier. This would really cause challenges with sealing and smudging if I were to do it directly on the surface of that mixed media background and try and glue my subject matter on top of it with the gel medium moving around. So now I'm going to again flip that and use my brayer to really press it into the surface of the plate. This is a very helpful tool when it comes to really applying pressure because you get to push straight down from your shoulders. Okay, so now I've transferred that beautiful smudgy line, and I'm going to put the gel medium on top. And as you can see, even when I put the gel medium on with the palette knife, it's not moving because it is really embedded in that sticky surface of the gel plate, which is rather amazing, honestly. Okay, so I've got a good layer of gel medium, and now I'm going to add that sort of to the edge of this. I don't want to overlap it completely, but I want to overlap some of it. So I'm going to put it right like that. And then again with the Baron. Now you could use multiple colors depending on what effect you're going for. You can make multiple of these sheets in advance and keep them in your stash to overlay onto your collages as you go, rather than making them specifically for each purpose. So you could have fun playing with this on wet strength tissue and then have a stash of pastel mark making on tissue for your collage projects. So here I've picked up that beautiful soft smudgy line, and again it's not transferring or if it is, it's very bare minimum. Actually, I think this is from my fingers from holding the pastel. Here's a clean finger, and it's not transferring. So we've got that, and then let's come in with one more color. So you could see that heavy coverage didn't completely pull like the previous one did. But so lastly, I'm going to come in with a slightly orangey red, and just this is a nice soft one. It's a very small piece. And we'll do that. And I think this one, rather than layering it with this, I might put it separate. Keep it as a separate element. So let's try that. I would put that here, because it's beautiful on its own, and it could go side by side. And if I make it as a separate element, I can slide it around and determine how close or how far or how near I want it to the other one. So look at that beautiful transfer, bright, vibrant color. Again, the gel medium. And it doesn't disturb the pastel at all. A nice thin layer. And I'm actually going to overlap this so I can really give you the sense of the layers with the soft pastel. But it could also be its own effect on another part of the paper, so you could use it independently. So now I have this lovely overlay, okay? This is wet strength tissue paper, so it can handle all this gel printing. So let's move that now. Move this. Then we're going to bring in, and I was figuring I would put those marks kind of over here at this edge. So to make it a little bit easier to manage, I'm going to cut this. It's still a little wet from the gel medium, so I'm carefully cutting that. Now, you know I love to tear everything, but the wet strength tissue really only wants to tear in one direction, and it fights you when you try to tear it in the other direction. So rather than have a really raggedy edge with the possibility of tearing into this, which I don't want to, I'm just going to cut it, because the edges of this paper, the wet strength tissue, are really just going to disappear. Okay, so now I have made it long enough that it can go right off the edges with the 12-inch on the 12-inch gel plate, working on this 10-inch board, so I have edge to edge here. And I get to slide that around, and I think I'm going to put it this way over here with the postage stamps. But that heavy line, I don't want to cover my postage stamps, so maybe I need to do it here, or maybe I just need to do it off to this side. But this is what's nice about this. You get to kind of move it around and decide before you commit to it. I think it could go here, actually, along the bottom. Or why does this need to be the bottom? It could be the left-hand side. It could be the top. So the only thing that I'm considering for my top of this is there's a really great postcard with great handwriting, and I've got it complete here with the postal indicia. So that would be nice at the top. So I think that I'll put it across the bottom. I'll give myself some colorful weight across the bottom. Now, if you didn't want this to be quite so colorful, of course you could do the same effect in black or in dark brown, kind of to go with the sepia tone of this, or you could pick up the blue. So the possibilities are endless, okay? So now what we're going to do is I'm going to use gloss medium. And a liquid medium, I have found through a lot of experimenting that the liquid medium really makes the wet strength tissue paper go clear, because it soaks through the wet strength tissue better than the gel. So, and I really, I'm going to put a generous layer of that here with my catalyst blade. You want to make sure you get it right out to the edges and the corners. And I'm using this blade because this is a large piece of paper, and I can get more wide pressure with this. Okay, so I'm going to slide that here. I'm going to let that heavy pink be at the bottom. And I'm going to make sure I get it out to the corners and the edges. And now I'm going to put more gel medium on top. Sorry, liquid medium. I'm so used to saying gel medium. Okay, so we've got that transferred out to the corners. And then the easiest thing is to wrap it around the edges. You can also trim it off, but I'm just going to wrap this around the edges. Okay, and that way I don't have to worry about trimming right up next to it. So I'm going to put this medium on the edge, pull the tissue around it tight. And again, that's the beauty of this wet strength tissue, is that it's durable. It's not going to tear, although it will tear right on the edge if you don't want to wrap it around the back. Okay, so now on the bottom, and I want to pull it so it's tight down from the front to make sure we don't have any wrinkles. And I'm folding the corners almost like a Christmas package. So I've got it wrapped around, and then you could tear this along the edge like it did previously, or you can just wrap it around the back. But I would wait for it to dry before you tear it from the edge. Or like I said, we can just wrap it around the back. Sometimes that's a little easier. So I'll just put a little more medium back here. And again, I'll just pull it down so it goes around. That's a lot of information about how to glue it around the edges. Okay, so here we have this beautiful pastel mark making on the mixed media ephemera background. You can see that you can see right through that wet strength tissue, so and you don't see the edge of the paper at all. So it's now incorporated into the ephemera mixed media background, and it's not smudging, it doesn't need to be sealed, and it's just as vibrant as it was when it came off of the paper. There's no difference in color intensity or vibrancy there, and you don't have to worry about sealing it. So that is an open door of possibilities with layering soft pastel on wet strength tissue and incorporating it into your mixed media artwork.
Well, that's all I've got for this week. I hope you found it helpful and inspiring, and I'll see you back here next week.